live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube, wherever you may be, however you may be listening on this Wednesday night, last day of January, the month that is 8 weeks long and packed full of a bunch of different weather circumstances. Count them 2 weeks ago, it was negative 30 wind chills in our neck of the woods. And then today it got near 50 out here in eastern Iowa. I don't know how warm it got out by you, but it's like an 80, 90 degree difference from what we've been expecting, or from what we've been enduring, I should say, over the last few weeks. But we're almost out of the woods of January, thank Christ, because I feel like there's been nothing new in theaters, or very little new in theaters of note. February is going to poise us for some really big movies. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to talk about them with my gents on here too. Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso joining me as always. We're backtracking a little bit for the movie today. We are talking about Poor Things. Probably would have talked about this sooner, but my area decided not to get this movie until the 11th hour and for the Oscar nominations either. I don't think we're going to talk about it on the show or do a dedicated review to it unless we have maybe a slow week, but me and Catherine are catching American Fiction tomorrow. So I'm excited for that. That finally came out here too. So playing a little catch up over here over the next couple of weeks or so. And this might be probably going to be our last 2023 movie review going forward. Is this show, because usually January, after we get through our top five and top five best, top five worst, we usually bleed in. There's usually one or two movies that we still haven't talked about yet from Christmas time, December, and today it's Poor Things. Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things, a movie that we're dedicating all or most of the show to today. So I'm very excited for that. Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso. I'm nothing without these two men. We're not even live on the YouTube without these two men. First things first, Joe. Start with you. How's things?
Things are going good. School's been going pretty good so far. Can't wait to cross that finish line later this year. Hopefully, knock on wood, everything else that can make that happen. God, if you're there, listen to me.
It's going to happen.
My name's not Margaret, but please listen to me. But yeah, school's been going all right. Work's been super busy. I had one of those days yesterday where I had 3 meetings, and I said to myself, no matter what, I'm going to stay focused at work. And these meetings bled over the time they said they would be. And of course, when I got back to my desk, I was like exhausted from just talking and presenting stuff. There was one that I went to where it was a workshop, but I ended up presenting at the workshop rather than learning at the workshop. So I was like, okay, what a twist of fate that was. Yeah, so it's been really busy at work. Personal life, though, I finally got to attend one of those screen unseen things that AMC's been doing recently, where you can go for free with your AMC Stubs membership, or you can pay $5 a ticket. And what these basically are is they're movies that are coming out relatively soon, and you get a chance to see them ahead of time before anybody else, but you don't know what movie it is. And they're apparently a big hit at AMC. And I went to the very first quote horror movie one, and I'm gonna tell the guys more about this in the green room after the show. All I'm gonna say is I did have a good time, and it's really cool to go see a horror movie that you didn't know what it was gonna be. Like, you know, it's like, oh god, what's the monster gonna be? Is it gonna be spirits, ghosts, whatever, demons? And to just kind of go in blind and just like, you'll let the movie play out. I think it very much helps the movie. But I'll go more into that if we ever end up reviewing it one week sometime in the future. I doubt it, but who knows. But it was really cool, and I can't wait to go see another one down the line. Unfortunately, the next one that's coming out is on Wednesday, and I have a sneaking suspicion it's Lisa Frankenstein, based on the runtime. But, yeah.
They do tell you the runtime?
They do tell you the runtime, and the runtime had like a 3-minute difference to what was advertised. And then what was actually on like the IMDb page of the film. So I'm like, okay, so they kind of play around with it. But the next one says it's another horror movie, and this one's rated PG-13. And I'm like, okay, the only thing I can really think of is Lisa Frankenstein.
Which we will review on the show, too. Mm-hmm. Which we will review on the show here in a couple of weeks as well. Dominic, how are you?
Doing all right. I know people do say that. I hear that all the time, where it's like, yeah, January lasts forever. And I can see that. I can definitely see that. Coughing is a thing after all. However, for me personally, it's not even work. Work is actually slow, thankfully. But I'm taking full advantage of it. I am going to the city every single week to go and catch some live jazz, you know, support the arts with what meager funds that I can. I can't afford to really buy merch from artists, so I do Instagram reels. That's the best I can do. I'm paying them an exposure and the door fee. But regardless, it's very fulfilling, and I do love that city of my birth. Before I was immediately evacuated to the suburbs, but to the safety of the suburbs. But no, um, getting out to the city is, and taking the train, like Jesus Christ, what a relief. Like taking the CTA, I know the CTA, as any actual Chicago person will tell you, is crap these days. And I see why, because of delays and, the general state of things. But just the general concept of like, hey, I can just chill here for 40 minutes riding up to the north side from Union Station and not like drive or worry about parking a car. Dude. Or any of that.
Dom, you echo everything I love about taking the metro. Literally, because my friends hate the fact that like where we live, we have the longest ride because the station we usually depart from is either the second or first stop, depending if it's a weekday or weekend.
Right.
And I'm just like, look, it's either an hour on this or an hour and a half stuck in the car. Like, I'm sorry, but I can relax. I'm usually the one that ends up driving. I can relax on the train. And just be like,
and then whatever 100%. You wind up paying for parking, and then whatever you wind up paying for parking on top of that.
The mileage on your car, potential accidents, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like the back and forth, the stop and go, it sucks.
No.
100%. 100%. No, I've said before, and you've been singing the praises recently too. Love the train. Love everything about the train. But good to have you gentlemen on the show today. We are going to be talking about Poor Things, a movie I wish I would have seen, or wish I would have had the opportunity to see before making my top 10 films list of 2023. Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. It was number 1 on Joe's top 5 for 2023. Dom saw it last week ahead of the show, and you were talking about it. Did you see it last Wednesday? I forget. Did you see it last Wednesday? Yeah, you.
Yeah, I saw it, I think last Monday or Tuesday before.
It was fresh. It was fresh because we were talking the Oscars the whole show, and you mentioned it several times in relation to its nominations. So we'll talk more about Emma Stone being nominated for Best Actress. But
I will ask this again at the end of the year. But would this count as a 2024 movie? Is this valid for Best of 2024?
I'd say no.
Say no. Okay.
I would say no because it came out. It technically was
November,
released.
Right?
It technically was released in December 8th.
Oh, okay.
December 8th is when it came out.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So that's how I judge it. That's how I judge it generally based on when it was released, either at a well-attended popular festival or when it was released in theaters. That's when I classify it. So it is technically a 2023 movie. And it is eligible for Oscars, obviously, because it was nominated in several categories. Where to begin with this thing? This thing is a doozy. I will start by saying Yorgos Lanthimos. I've seen most of his movies. I haven't seen Dogtooth. That was like the one that was really popular on the indie circuit, and then The Lobster followed a couple years later, and that's what really got everybody talking and buzzing about Lanthimos in general. But he's a Greek auteur. He's made The Lobster. He's made Killing of a Sacred Deer. He has made The Favorite. The Favorite was his last movie, his most recent before Poor Things. That came out about 5 years ago. That was nominated for a litany of Oscars. That got Olivia Colman her Oscar, too. And Lanthimos' movies, in general, I've liked them. I haven't loved them. I find their style to be a little bit purposefully alienating and kind of consumed with their weirdness, but I like the thread that he weaves throughout all of his movies, at least his most recent and most popular 4. And that common thread is really about the idea of self-discovery, the pursuit of self-discovery, and the human desire of connection, and sort of an unwillingness to be controlled or manipulated, which is very much the strong core themes of Poor Things, but is also very applicable in The Favorite. It's very applicable in The Lobster. Goes a little off the rails in Killing of a Sacred Deer, but you can definitely make some arguments there with that one. I would say before Poor Things, Killing of a Sacred Deer was probably my favorite of Lanthimos's, and I feel like that's the one that was sandwiched between The Lobster and The Favorite, which were both really critically acclaimed. The Killing of a Sacred Deer was a bit more divisive, so not a lot of buzz, I feel like, came to that one. It's sort of forgotten, but especially now with Poor Things. But this, in my opinion, is Yorgos Lanthimos' best movie. This is his opus as of right now. This is a movie that sees his style, his actors, his story, and his visuals all coalescing into something that is distinctly weird and a weirdly gripping masterpiece. All around, from performances. Again, I say visuals. We'll talk more about those. We got a long show. We got a long runway here. The visual aspect of this movie, the thematic aspect of this movie, even the music too. The music is gorgeous in this thing and loans a lot to the production. There is so much to discuss with this movie. I'll bounce over to you, Dom, and then you, Joe, because Joe, you technically did give kind of a mini review
Absolutely,
of this too, with your best of. I want to hear what you have to say, Dom. Those are just my general thoughts.
Growing up as an only child, someone who didn't have too many close friends. I got along with some folks and a lot of folks in grade school, but didn't really have a lot of close friends. I had an accent, even though I couldn't speak any other language other than English. So I felt pretty isolated, right? At times in my life overall. Growing up into high school, found some really close friends there, but I still found myself thanks to the good old internet, which I was very much raised on early, I still found myself falling into some incel and incel adjacent kind of communities. I think you kind of know where I'm going with this. And I do think about what I would have, if this movie had come out 10, 12 years ago, and I had seen this in theaters, what kind of disgusting piece of shit I would have been had I seen this movie. Because this movie is on the surface level and a little deeper than that. It's all about one woman's like just self-liberation. And it is a beautiful thing. You see her effectively, um, as a toddler at birth, in a very strange opening sequence of events in black and white that almost didn't catch me at all. I was like, okay, if this is going to be the whole movie, I am going to be a little bit off put. This sounds like I never saw The Lobster, but this sounds like the weirdness of The Lobster. Of that. As it progressed, this turned into one of the most enjoyable adventure movies I've seen in a long time. And it is, and I also compare this movie to Cloud Atlas. Remember that? Tom Hanks, Halle Berry. I compare this to Cloud Atlas in the way that I remember the discourse at the time of Cloud Atlas, where everyone was like, "Oh, Cloud Atlas, that's so weird. It's so all over the place. I don't get it. You have to be like, you got to like really put things together." And I'm like, no, I think if you pay attention, it's actually very straightforward of a movie. It can be a little esoteric at times in how it deals with things, but it is extremely straightforward in the sense that, yeah, everything's connected. There's just through all these times and periods, but yada, yada. In that sense, Poor Things has the aesthetic of being weird and esoteric, and it actually genuinely is to a couple degrees. But if you really sit back and look at it, it's like, it's a journey for one woman, really a little girl turning into a woman, and how she navigates the world, and tired things like the patriarchy, like capitalism, et cetera, et cetera. But it's watching someone grow up and grow into themselves. And because of the fact that Stone plays literally every age of this person's development, rapidly, exponentially growing development. Um, I feel like anyone can really connect to this. I don't advise kids should watch this, but uh, you know, teenagers that will sneak around and will inevitably find this movie, right? But also, college students, etc. Young people out of college, even if you're older, I think a lot of people can see themselves in Emma Stone, the adventures that they had and the adventures that they could have had, and they may be able to still have. I can relate to that in certain ways, right? I'm not so much, having sex with half of Chicago, but I am certainly enjoying more of Chicago, as we talked about previously. So in that sense, like, oh, I can go out and enjoy the world and open myself up to just what is here in the suburbs, etc. So in that sense, it is a very fulfilling movie. It is a very funny movie. I know we're gonna nail this comedic aspect, particularly with Mark Ruffalo. But that is my basic kind of takeaway from this movie, is that it was fun, it was heartfelt, and it was weird in all the right ways. It didn't make me roll my eyes. It felt weird in all the right ways for me.
Excellently said. Very well said, Dom. I know you've been sitting on that for over a week.
Oh, 100%.
It's a sterling monologue right there. Joe, parlay it to you, man.
I don't remember exactly what I said during like my whole 7-minute, 5-minute thing when we gave our number one pick of the year. But I'll try to keep this as brief as possible because I want to hear more from these guys. I'm echoing everything they said. And if you watched the show a few weeks ago, you know already what I think of this movie. It was my favorite movie of 2023. It came in at the very end, and it scored the biggest slam dunk I ever seen, like, from a movie coming out so late in the year. Usually I know, like, oh, that's it, like, that's not going to change. This is my number one movie, and then this one came in. Funny enough, this movie has a lot of similarities to Barbie in terms of, like, a woman's self-discovery and everything. So if you saw Barbie and you were like, damn, I wish Greta Gerwig even got more weird, this might be up your alley. Poor Things, to me, what made me love it so much, and both of you have been kind of saying this, it is, the story of Bella's self-discovery and meaning, what she wants to be in life and everything. One of my favorite film genres is, like, the coming-of-age story, and I think taking that aspect of, like, watching someone grow up and, like, deal with things that, as humans, we are going to deal with at some point in our lives. That's what always makes coming-of-age stories so relatable, so engaging at points, because it's just like, yeah, I've been there. No matter what gender it is and everything. Edge of 17, there are things that in that movie I relate to Haley Steinfeld in. All that stuff. And Boyhood is the same thing, even though, like, that's literally watching a kid grow up and everything too. There's a lot more I feel in contact with in that movie. With Poor Things, I mean, you have that here as well, where watching Bella's journey from the beginning of the movie, where she is basically an infant, to the end of the movie, which I won't ruin where things end, but just like watching it all come full circle, it was one of my favorite journeys to watch a character take last year. It was honestly like I just was enjoying where the movie was going, what it was doing. I think it was written so damn well because not only is Bella written so interestingly, she's funny, and her journey that you're on is, like I said, interesting, but all the supporting characters, which we will get to eventually, all serve a purpose to a lesson that she learns throughout the movie as well, of like becoming the woman that she's going to be. Like every character she interacts with gives her like a new perspective, gives her a new desire or something she wants to chase. And I thought, like, wow, man, like I haven't seen a movie in so long where every character, no matter how short of screen time they may have had, felt like they had a significant impact in this character's journey. And this one, I mean, nails it. Yorgos Lanthimos, I mean, like Steve said it as well. I've liked most of his films. I haven't loved them. I really loved The Favorite. That was like in my top 10 of whatever year it came out. It wasn't like high. And I was saying, like, I felt like The Favorite was like the best of like what he's good at until this movie, which I wholeheartedly agree. This is him. This is his magnum opus almost to me, where I feel like everything he's known for like being a weird director, the thread that Steve mentioned of like having self desire and whatnot. I feel like that's all on full display here, and he is just firing on all cylinders. It is really damn good. I mean, there's other aspects too of this film that we can talk about, but I've spoken already like 3 weeks ago. I won't go on too much longer. I want to hear more from these guys, but yeah, if you already don't know, I love this movie.
Yeah, this is also based on Alastair Gray's novel, too, of the same name, Poor Things. I think it's important to note, too, this isn't necessarily an original work. This is based off a novel, one that I would absolutely like to read. The basic gist of this movie, I think we should at least dive into the plot here at least a little bit, and especially since we got some extra time, too. It's essentially a mad scientist of sorts, played by Willem Dafoe, creates this woman, and I'm not going to get into like the backstory of the creation. I think that's something that's best left to be discovered.
Yeah.
But he essentially creates this woman named Bella, played by Emma Stone, who is like a toddler to start in an adult's body. She throws tantrums, she talks and grunts, but she gradually starts to become a little bit more civilized and socialized. Eventually, one of the mad scientists, who is known as God, his name is Godwin, and he's known to Bella as God. One of his students comes and visits. He's played by Remy Youssef, and he winds up falling in love with Bella. But Bella instead, kind of a little bit by force, shacks up with Duncan Wedderburn. What a great name, played by Mark Ruffalo, who like whisks her away on this tour of the world, so to speak, all across this the whole globe essentially. And their journey together is really defined by Bella having copious amounts of sex, which she refers to as furious jumping, in a gag that is very funny and very smartly used and integrated into the story, I'll add too. But over time, you watch sort of the evolution of Bella's mind and mannerisms. Joe, you brought up a good point. About how, like you said, like if Barbie got more weirder, you could say this is maybe the origin of Weird Barbie in so many ways. You could say that this is maybe the origin story of her character here. But that's essentially the movie too. There's not a plethora of characters. There's a couple noteworthy ones though, because you do have Hannah Shigula, who plays the elderly aristocratic woman they meet on a cruise ship, along with Jared Carmichael too, who's very, very dryly funny in an extended cameo. What it amounts to. We'll talk a lot about Emma Stone and towards the second half, towards the end of the show too. I'm not shortchanging her in any way, but we do have to give flowers to Mark Ruffalo here. He is absolutely unequivocally outstanding here. He doesn't take on a ton of full-fledged comedic or broadly comical roles, I'm trying to say. He doesn't take on a lot of those. He incorporated humor, obviously, in the MCU with the Hulk and everything like that, but this is an entirely different character, one that he basically creates from the ground up, who gets more and more unhinged, and my God, is he friggin' hysterical throughout this whole thing. Side-splittingly funny, ton of great quotes. One of my favorite scenes of this movie is the scene when he wins those casino riches and what Bella does with those casino riches and his subsequent reaction, which is then parlayed to them getting to France and being stuck in France. There's like a whole good 10-minute stretch where Mark Ruffalo, I could not stop laughing. He's exemplary here.
He is a live action Looney Tunes character. Like he's literally like, if I were to watch some Warner Brothers like cartoon, I would not be surprised if his character existed and Bugs Bunny was just messing with him for like 22 minutes. He has like this weird British accent that I feel like
that dumbass accent, bro.
That on purpose sounds a little bad and comes and goes because he's trying to like almost present himself that he's bigger than he might seem and everything. And it breaks at like the best moments where it's just like Bella would say something that's so out of pocket that even he's like, wait, like what the hell are you saying? Like the accent just completely breaks.
Yeah, like he'll go into flowery language and then just drop F-bombs at the it's the greatest. It's just tension and release. Sophisticated. What the hell? It's so good.
There's a scene where Bella hears an instrument playing and she wants to go run and dance to it, and the way he just runs onto the dance floor and just tries like sexually dancing with Bella, and like everybody's just looking at them like, what the hell are you doing? And they sit back down, and Bella's like, that man keeps winking at me over there. And then what Mark Ruffalo ends up doing.
The hubris on this character and the ego is so beautifully inflated that whenever Emma Stone it is Looney Tunes shit, where it's like Mr. Magoo shit, where she's like an emotional Mr. Magoo. She just wanders into his life, does something to just completely screw him up mentally, and then just like I don't know, I don't know, I'm just doing my thing, and meanwhile he just suffers all the consequences of that, and it's a fantastic formula that they milk like at least 7 or 8 times at least.
Every payoff with it too is so good, especially the scene that Steve was referring to where he wins a bunch of like casino chips and he cashes it out, and eventually what happens to that. Like even how that's resolved as like the movie goes on and on, like where it's just like they get to their destination at the end of the cruise, and with the conversation they have there, and like just his realization of like how much he hates her and everything. It's like, oh my god, this is so fucking funny to watch play out.
Yeah, he's outstanding here. Me and Catherine keep going back and forth the one line in it. I won't contextualize what it is, but the one line that we both love quoting is, "This whole trip has been these last 2 weeks have been a fucking emergency." He's great, man. I almost got sad when he kind of disappears, like for like a solid stretch in the third act, but he does come back around to great effect.
Oh, he comes back.
Yeah, I got almost kind of sad, like, cause after he leaves and such. But the movie really, truly, though, as excellent as Mark Ruffalo is, deserved with that Oscar nomination. As great as he is, this movie belongs to Emma Stone, because I think Emma Stone is so established, and she's done a lot of great roles in her day. She's had a myriad of tremendous performances across comedies, dramas, like comedy horror movies like Zombieland and things like that. Obviously, The Favorite, she's worked with Lanthimos in the past. She's so established, and we've come to look at her as one of the best actresses working today, at least as an A-lister, that I think we forget, though, like this is a hard role, Bella. It is a supremely hard role to play. Like, and there's kind of a wonder that Gray's novel hasn't been adapted before, because it is a challenging role. It's a role that requires you to be physically physically, taxed in a way. You got to be nonverbal for the most part of it. Then you kind of like have to convincingly grow. I mean, it's a difficult character to write even for a movie, much less play. And I think she is just absolutely tremendous from top to bottom in this thing, watching her character grow.
And I remember I said this during our best of the year show, is that I thought it was the bravest performance I've seen this year, because to take on a role like this, put yourself in front of a camera and just hope to God you can be taken seriously enough to either be comedically funny or dramatic, like you gotta have damn good chops, and to be convincing like the whole way from beginning to end. It's like, I mean, if somebody were to ask me, like, what is her best performance, I am gonna probably point at this film. Like, I mean, if they're not
this could be a career ender for so many other actresses.
Yeah, honestly, it really could. I honestly thought about that, like watching the movie throughout, especially like, not that this would be a big like ruiner, but like the amount of nudity and nude scenes she had to do too as this character. Now, nude scenes are one thing, but nude scenes as this character who is discovering sex for the first time is basically the mind of a teenager, then a college student almost at a point, and then an adult, experimenting with all this stuff. It's like, holy shit, like, yeah, this could have went south in so many ways, especially even too with the writing. Because I mean, really think about it, it's just like Mark Ruffalo, while it is Emma Stone's body and she's an adult, it is the mind of like a child, and that plays more into Duncan's character than more people think, and it shows how
that was unsettling to think about. Like, once it's like, oh yeah, he is technically doing this, but they handle it. They handle, and he gets his comeuppance.
His comeuppance, and it shows you also in terms of Max, how much better of a guy he turns out to be at the end of the story, because he tells her like, no, I want you to continue to develop. I want you to I'm gonna wait and everything.
He turns into a beta. No.
It's just like, wow, it shows again, all these characters serve a purpose and give context to how Bella views things throughout this whole world. And I even said it too, the world building in this, having her be the avatar for this world is so perfect, because it's not only is she discovering this world for the first time, so are we. So if something just seems weird and out of place for us, it's weird and out of place for her too, and she has probably a similar reaction we do to, isn't that peculiar?
Aesthetically, go ahead.
I liked what you brought up there, Joe, too, because so much of this movie is seen through the eyes of Bella. Mm-hmm. And the interesting part about this movie is it's technically set in Victorian London, but you can't really put a time on it.
Yeah.
Because there's futurism elements in this thing.
A little steampunk is as well.
A little steampunkism too. There's a little bit of old world elements.
That horse carriage,
what
was that?
The horse, yeah, exactly. Which is kind of fitting though, given the fact that she's seeing, and if we're to see this world the way that she is seeing it, it's as if she's not sure of what she's seeing really either. You know what I mean? And that's where I think this crossbred hybridization of this world that Lanthimos creates that doesn't sometimes looks like it's in the late 1800s. Sometimes it looks like it's in the not so distant future. I think that plays into it as well too. There's some really daring things. Well, you can talk more about this after the intermission. I don't want to derail what you were going to say, Dom, but there's some really interesting, compelling things happening with this movie visually.
Yeah, and aesthetically, it matches so well. The set design and costume design was on point here.
For the longest time, I was like, Barbie's got this in the bag for the Oscars. I don't know anymore.
100%. This movie, this is another tangent from my point. This movie really is the artsy fartsy Barbie. It is the deeper Barbie.
Somebody on Letterboxd called it Barbie for the mentally ill.
That's pretty good. That is pretty good and not incorrect.
It has a lot in common with it, though. It really does.
It really is funny. It's okay, if you thought the monologue from America Ferrera was mid, it was this was a weak point of the movie, etc., which I'm a little sympathetic to that view. If you thought that, watch this movie instead. This is the adult Barbie that you didn't have enough of that edge and bite, which the original Barbie, in my opinion, did. But regardless, just how candy coated. I don't want to say candy coated. That's a little too Barbie. But how make believe the world is. If you look at the video game term, but if you look at the skybox in so many of these larger set pieces, it's that is clearly fake. They didn't even try to make that look real because it's supposed to be through her eyes. It's okay, that's really cool. You said the steampunk aspect. Things are just scaled a little weirdly. It's not quite Dr. Seuss, but it's it has a hint of Dr. Seuss architecture to it, if you know what I mean.
I remember I said it reminds me of almost Tim Burton, live action Tim Burton weirdness.
Tim Burton, yeah, there you go. That's probably the best comparison, most accurate comparison. So just holistically, it's a really, really fun time. Yeah.
We'll probably take our intermission right here because I don't want to parlay into the cinematography and really the, sort of couple big visuals I want to bring up here.
Are you telling me you enjoyed the cinematography of this movie?
I did indeed enjoy the cinematography.
That's interesting. Movie. Oh, okay. I can't wait to give more into that and show that specifically to someone later. Go on.
We will talk about that. I cannot wait to dive into the visuals of Poor Things, a beautiful, ravishing looking movie, I might add as well. But we will be back here in just a couple of minutes. Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, don't go anywhere. Continuing our discussion of Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things on this Wednesday evening. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening, back after our Zoom-sponsored intermission to talk more about Poor Things, the Yorgos Lanthimos movie. We are chatting about, really kind of parlaying, I guess, into the visuals of this movie, which are absolutely outstanding. The name to note here is Robbie Ryan for cinematography. A lot of colors, a lot of textures in this movie, a lot of very vibrant visuals at both dark and night, or dark and dusk, and if I can talk, dark and light visuals. I think some of the most entrancing visuals that you see in this movie come on that cruise ship. The oceanic video photography in this, the skies themselves are something else. It might look artificial, it might look, like the work of CGI, but it's gorgeous. And that's the thing that it's arresting in itself. If the performances aren't great, then the visuals don't matter, but the performances are so good, the writing is so sharp and comedic, you get these textured, gorgeous landscapes, and it just ties everything together. What say you, Dom?
100%. And I think with the shots on, like, I can't really talk about it because it's kind of spoiling the ending. And we'll get into critiques in a little bit too, but ultimately it's whatever. But like, there are just shots and close-ups of people that it's like this. It's a fantastic reaction shot. Let me say that. I'll generalize because it's a really good gag you deserve to see fresh, which is that a character will say something and then hard reaction shot. This is a comedy as well. You could call it a black comedy, a dark comedy, because
what's hilarious? We were talking.
Yeah.
We were talking about this, not to interrupt you. We were talking about this, me and Catherine, after we saw it. Catherine's like, what would you call this movie?
Yeah.
And I'm like genre wise. And I just noticed this joke doesn't work anymore because Wikipedia has since been updated from somebody, not me, for a change. It was funny because I was like, it's got like tragic comedy elements, but it's not really tragic at the end. I said I would say like a surrealist black comedy is how I would have called it. It was funny. Last week when I reviewed this thing, usually Wikipedia calls something a 2023 something film.
Right.
I kid you not, last week on Wikipedia, it's since been updated, but last week it said Poor Things is a 2023 film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos.
Nothing, huh?
And I thought that was telling in itself. It has since been updated, and I would agree with this. 2023 science fiction black comedy.
Yeah.
Yep, science fiction. Joe said it best, coming of age. That's a very apt marker. I would say, I wouldn't even say. I would just say it has elements of absurdism as well. And that is a very hard thing to nail down, absurdism. I forget the, academic description of that term, but the heart of that argument is that it's just something that it's not quite Looney Tunes wacky. It just feels like it is, while you can take it seriously at the same time. That's how it's been described to me. I don't know if that's a perfect description, but that really, really gels with me. And the absurdity of this movie at many, many times hits so damn well because of that cinematography, because of that comedic pacing and timing. Did you see any of that in The Lobster? As someone who didn't watch that, but Steve, would you say Lanthimos you could see some of that in The Lobster, which I know is one of his more esoteric films?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think his style has definitely evolved since then in ways. I think it's better illustrated. The Lobster is one of those movies too. I don't think I was adequately prepared for what I was about to see.
Same.
And I would like to rewatch it now.
I read the summary and I was like, okay.
Having seen more of Lanthimos' movies and now adjusting or understanding his style more, I'd like to go back and revisit it. Because truth be told, as far as the inner workings of the plot of The Lobster, I don't remember a ton of it. I remember some of it was very funny, but some parts to me felt either underdeveloped or a little bit I guess tonally inconsistent. I read back and actually read portions of my review of it while I was writing my review of Poor Things, and I was slowly recalling some of the, push pull I had with that. But I know I think Lanthimos is supremely consistent when it comes to like this sort of style. This movie looks a lot like The Favorite, but I think it's even prettier. I think it's even more realized than The Favorite was.
I didn't watch The Favorite, and as someone who likes history stuff, I feel like that's right up my alley. So I think I need to just buck. Now that I've seen this, I'm like, hell yeah, I'll watch The Favorite. I had nothing against it then. I just didn't have time. So yeah,
It is good. It is good. It's probably Lanthimos' most mainstream movie.
Yeah.
Truth be told, because it was kind of his take on like a period piece,
right.
like kind of like loaning to certain parts of history. Like it definitely felt more straight laced than a lot of his movies, especially Killing of a Sacred Deer is fucking nuts. I must say that movie, Barry Keoghan's in it. It's great. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I was gonna say I've been seeing people say it's Yorgos's like his version of what a romantic comedy would be. Like is The Favorite. Like it's like yeah, I could kind of see that. Like if Lanthimos was like given full reign of a romantic comedy, I could see The Favorite being that. A romantic dark comedy though.
Breaking news.
One of his
Poor Things. The Wikipedia just says 2023 black comedy film. They took out science fiction. It is just black comedy film now. Yeah.
It was science. I pulled this Wikipedia article up an hour ago.
I believe you. I believe you.
There's a beef going on right now on Wikipedia, and I'm not causing it for one.
We're watching it in real time.
There is a beef because a week ago, I just refreshed it, and it took away science fiction. What's that term I would still say there's sci-fi elements.
What's that joke? Oh, 100%. Like, where's that joke where it's like, yeah, we recreated the Library of Alexandria by just pitting nerds against each other, just allowing them to correct each other. That's how we created this infinite wealth of knowledge. Like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. But, yeah, sorry, Steve, where were you going with that?
No, I was just going to add to one of Dom's New Year's resolutions, or at least one of the things he brought up during our retrospective for 2023, our shows there, was to talk more about music and everything. So I kind of want to give you the floor. I know we talked about it a little bit during our Oscar discussion here, but I kind of want you to lead the charge on Jerskin Fendrix. That's another thing too. I love about Yorgos Lanthimos. He brings people together that got some of the coolest names. Like they got some of the coolest names. All these Greek names. Like his editor on this movie is named Yorgos Mavropsaridis or something. Like another Greek man named Yorgos on this movie. Okay, so we got Jerskin Fendrix over here with the score, continuing the Hall of Fame name roster that Yorgos puts together. The Avengers of unique Greeks over here, the Greek freaks, if you will.
Will that beat Hoyt van Hoytema? Will that beat Hoyt van Hoytema? I don't think so, but still, just in the name.
No, Hoyt van Hoytema is still up there. Wim Wenders. Don't forget Wim Wenders.
Wim Wenders and Jerskin Fendrix sounds like dumbass Star Wars names. No offense. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's very insulting. No, Jerskin Fendrix's score on here is really, it's just cool, man. It is cool. It is dark. It's like, this is the shit that like it's the kind of aesthetic that Tim Burton wants to capture again. Does that make sense? Am I being a little too over the top with that description?
Not really.
It's the leitmotifs, the themes, right? The recognizable bit, the notes that you're like, oh shit, that it's like when Darth Vader enters the room, it's like bum 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 ba bum ba those themes, right? The slidey like string. I should know my instrumentation, but like. Those sliding strings, they may not be strings, but it's so damn cool, and it's unsettling, but gets weirdly comforting too, because it always comes in at moments where Emma Stone. I need to watch this. I've only seen it once, so maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it always comes in when Emma Stone is like coming to a realization or like discovering something. So it actually becomes very positive, despite after when you first hear it. Because that whole like first opening black and white portion is really unsettling, and then you start to get into it. more and more. And that's the same thing that happens with this score. Everything with this movie is working so damn well together and propels itself forward that it works so damn well. And the I can't say if it's true like Portuguese colonial music, but it really felt like I was in Lisbon, during that time period. And they even brought in some Portuguese folk singer, especially that woman on the Carmino, which is that is such a Portuguese artist name, who I'm sure is extremely good. But regardless, yeah, man, that theme. I would need to listen to the score proper, but that one theme, which if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Is very. I love it when things can be distinct, which sounds like, oh yeah, no shit, but. Um, uh, there's a habit of saying like things like, oh, this is too obvious of a theme and you use it too much, which is a thing. But I feel like composers can be a little afraid to do that while also being, I guess, artsy fartsy with it. You can do both, right? You can absolutely do both. I guess the opposite of that equation is Hans Zimmer, where it's just blaring horns and synths in your face the whole time, which is a valid critique, a very valid critique. But here, Jerskin Fendrix, uh, it finds that good middle where he can be both. He can be both.
Can I say I think it helps too, just reading his brief biography. Fun fact, government name is Jocelyn Dent Pooley. I would go by Jerskin Frendrix too. Be that as it may. I also would add though too, I think what helps Fendrix's case here, this is the first movie it looks like he's ever scored. This is the first movie.
Okay.
He's only about 28 years old. He's only about 28 years old, and he doesn't have a ton of credits. He's in a band. He describes his style as electro punk and ultra modern pop. He doesn't have a vast discography, and I think that like when you're young like that and you get brought on a project that's very unique and very one of a kind for a director who doesn't mind making things a little weird and different, I think it was a perfect marriage and a perfect situation where Fendrix is like, I'm just honored to be able to do the score of this movie, like, and I can do it my way too. And lo and behold, he gets an Oscar nomination for his first major score credit.
That's awesome.
That's
really
the shit
cool.
where it's like that. I don't know why I'm bringing them into this topic, but like that's the shit I wish superhero movies would actually do. It's like let's let's do something here. Let's go all out in this direction and just see what happens. I'm like, damn, I'm so glad this movie exists, dude. That's awesome.
The one thing
I wholeheartly agree.
The one thing I wanted to add on about cinematography was I love the use of the fisheye lens in this, and how like
oh yeah,
it's honestly used, I think, for great effect of like just like weird out of place moments, or just like moments that are just like, is this really happening right now? Like stuff like that. But Steve, I mean, like, yeah, you also I want to bring up the fisheye lens because we rarely see it in movies, but I'm glad you brought up cinematography because and we'll get more into this when we get into the second half. I was asked, in terms of the best cinematography category, who do I think will win at the Oscars? And I said it's either Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, or this movie. And everybody that when I said this movie, they looked at me and went, "That's weird because I thought the cinematography in that movie sucked." And I had to explain to them, or I wanted to explain to them. I never got a chance to because I didn't get a lick in because I was getting dogpiled on. I wanted to say it's not just about the camera work; it's also the use of color that's being shown on camera too, and of course, placement, all that stuff plays in the cinematography, and that is the strength of Poor Things. It's color, it's sets. That's what enhances its cinematography to even be better than what you think it is. There are just moments. I mean, the scene that sticks out to me that I was like, I fucking love the look of this movie. I love how it's filmed. Was when Bella is walking around the streets, and she hears that woman singing. Lisbon, and she hears that woman singing down the street, and just the camera just panning around and everything, and you're seeing like the magnetic monorail thing come by. You see people on the street in the market, and she's wearing like the weird stupid like sunglasses and everything. Like that whole scene made me go, damn, the cinematography in this movie is top tier.
I agree.
That's the same scene where I came to that realization too.
Cinematography's crowded this year.
It is
for the Oscars.
It is. Anybody can win in that category, and I'd be perfectly okay with it.
I would agree. Even Flower Moon, I would even add that. Before we parlay into closing thoughts, I did want to add, one little debate here and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of it's kind of weird to phrase this question because it's like, do you think Emma Stone has a chance to upset Lily Gladstone for Best Actress? I mean, there's always a chance. Now, I would be happy with either performance. I really would be. But if it were up to me, and this is a hard thing to, really place because I think Lily Gladstone gives a really great performance in a movie that should have been more about her.
Yes.
And I think the flawed nature of Flower Moon comes from the fact that Lily Gladstone's story should have been bigger than it was in especially in a 3.5-hour picture. And it's hard to fault it on that. But Emma Stone is so much an inextricable part. So is Lily Gladstone in her own right. But the movie revolves around Emma Stone's Bella in this. And I think the depth of challenge with this performance, if it were up to me, I would like to see her win. I really would. I love Lily Gladstone's performance in Flower Moon. I think symbolically it does a lot. I think, representation wise, it does a lot too. And I also just think it's a damn really good performance in a similar vein to Stone's performance as Bella too, as you see Molly start to kind of evolve a little bit more agency. Now she's bedridden for about 2/3 of the movie.
That's what I'm saying.
You still, it's a flaw with the movie. It's not a flaw with the performance. You still
100%.
see a maturation and a growing agency in her character. But truth be told, I raised an eyebrow, not out of skepticism, but out of a little bit of shock, because I saw it as a one-horse race, Joe, obviously before seeing Poor Things when we were talking last week. I would like to see Emma Stone win, and I think that she might be. There's a long time for the Oscars. We still got over a month before the Oscars. I still think there's a chance that she catches some steam here.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like Kills of the Flower Moon had the steam going into the nomination, season and everything. Poor Things, it got its wide release late December. It got its early release, only in New York and California in December, November-ish, around then. I feel like, it's going to pick up steam as it goes on. What camp am I in? I'm in the camp that will probably make everybody pissed off at me. But I'm also in the camp that I think Emma Stone does have a chance at winning this. And I am also in the same boat of, I think Lily Gladstone gives a great performance in Kills of the Flower Moon. She gives, I think, the best emotional performance, where I was literally tearing up at scenes of her going through the gut-wrenching, terrible things that her and her family face. Watching Molly just confront all that and then eventually find out the horrific truth by the end of that movie. The 2 times I saw that movie, both times I'm just like, damn, this is still hitting me hard. But not in retrospect, but on the other hand, I should say, Emma Stone's performance, and I said it earlier in the show too, I think was just very brave to do a performance like this. And Steve and Dom also said this. It's not easy. And I'm not saying Lily Gladstone's performance as Molly wasn't easy to do as well. No, that's a tough performance to do. I'm not discrediting that at all. But you have to look at the 2 characters here. One is literally you have to be in a completely different mindset than you can ever anticipate. You have to be a child, and you have to grow from a child from beginning to end of this movie. And there's things you have to say, there's body language you have to do, all this stuff. There's so much more going to that performance. I even watched the whole thing of Actors on Actors. It's with her and Bradley Cooper. Emma Stone and Bradley Cooper, I should say. And they've been making this movie since The Favorite. It was in development since The Favorite, of how Bella would act. It took years to really hone in on how Bella would do things. And when you see the movie, you see her performance, you're like, yeah, I get why. So for me, I'm fine with any actress winning. Honestly, even if it's not Lily Gladstone, Emma Stone, because I look at that category, I'm like, yeah, no, that's all great nominations. But between the 2, what I would say the front runner, which is Lily Gladstone, and the dark horse, Emma Stone, I kind of would like to see Stone win it.
100%.
What say you,
Gladstone's
Dom?
biggest mistake was being in a Scorsese movie. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
All right, now
That's an off the cuff
the
remark.
straight bullet that we get on Twitter.
No.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating debate, though. What, you have anything to add, Dom?
No, that's really it. You stole the words right out of my mouth, which is that she was in bed for at least a third of that movie, and it killed any chance for her to really flex any more muscle out of that role. Then it became, it became kind of like suffering. It became disaster porn at that sense, suffering.
There is.
Oh, what's Cousin Ernest gonna do now?
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, well, you took you revealed right away who was doing this shit. So it's like, well, you took out any of the tension. This is just a very slow, car crash that a rather boring one. Anyway, sorry, we're going back to our Killers review. So I'm going to stop.
This is going to become a new Mount Rushmore for Sleepless, by the way.
1,000%.
You know what? I will say before we parlay into closing thoughts here, I look at Gold Derby, which is like the experts. They throw that title out pretty liberally these days, so just take it with a grain of salt. But Gold Derby's sort of the handicapping website. It's like the DraftKings for award shows in so many words. Best actress and best actor. Here's things that you probably won't expect. Now, only 16 experts are picking who they think they're going to win. There's usually a couple hundred by the end of this. But out of the gate right now, Emma Stone leads with 10 experts saying she's going to win.
I keep telling people this, and they keep saying I'm ludicrous because they're not going to take it away from the Native American role. And I'm just like, I even brought what Steve said the other week, which is, it is not out of pocket for the Academy to do something so controversial like that.
Watch the better feminist movie than Barbie.
And we like Barbie.
I love Barbie.
Now, I don't want to go too much down the Oscar, but there was no experts reporting when we did the show. But let me tell you with Best Actor now too. Now again, there's usually a couple hundred experts that cast their ballots. Okay, on this Gold Derby site, you got very few reporting. Yeah. You have, I can do math, 16 reporting for Best Actor. Paul Giamatti leads with 9.
Let's go, baby.
No way.
As much as I love Cillian Murphy's
Paul Giamatti leads with 9.
Has he won anything?
Killian is second
has he won
with 6.
Has he won an Actors Award?
I think he won it for
I don't think so.
The other movie he did with...
Academy. Sorry. So Oscar Best Actor.
Did he not win it for...
he has not.
Oh, he didn't. All right, never mind.
I can't think of.
He didn't win it. He wasn't nominated for Sideways. That I remember.
Oh shit! Okay.
He wasn't nominated for Sideways. The only other nomination he's received himself for Oscar was in, and I didn't even see this movie, quite frankly, is a Cinderella Man.
Oh, with Russell Crowe, yes. Okay.
He was nominated for that with 2006 with Russell Crowe and Renee Zellweger.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But to parlay into closing thoughts, we'll go me, Dom, then Joe here to send us home on Sleepless with Steve. Absolutely love this movie. Joe talked about it very early. I was going to save this for my own closing remarks, but I feel foolish now thinking we weren't going to bring this up. The movie has quite a bit in common with Barbie. It's another story of a woman's quest for liberation and contentment with her own life and satisfaction in her own life. It's underscored by a remarkable performance by Emma Stone, a fiercely funny performance from Mark Ruffalo, and then you've got Willem Dafoe. We didn't talk much about, but Willem Dafoe is very good here.
Anybody with else, honestly, too.
With his scarred visage here in this movie too. You've got a very good. A very good roster of recognizable faces doing some career work, which says a lot for these names. I think this is Yorgos Lanthimos' opus right now. He's a relatively young director too, so we've got, God willing, we've got a lot more Yorgos Lanthimos movies to watch in the coming years. This will ultimately be, however, hard to top. This is a phenomenal movie. Would have made my top 5 had I seen it in 2023. It's 4 stars for me. Absolutely love Poor Things, though. Can't wait to watch it again.
I can go next if that's all right.
Oh, okay.
The only criticism I had about this movie, and Dom kind of hinted at it at the beginning, is I did think it started a little rough in the first few minutes, where I was like, I want to be on board with this, but like, there's just something about it. And it's not that I was in black and white, because even during the black and white moments, as it went on, I think it has just a bit of a, we're gonna throw you in, like, deep end at the very start, so you're just kind of adjusting to things as the movie just opens up. But as the movie goes on, I mean, it won me over like in a flash. Like, I love this movie. It was my number one, so you already know what star rating I'm gonna give. The last thing I want to add on and everything is that if Emma Stone were to win Best Actress, because I do think it is a possibility, I can totally see people taking the movie clips out of context of her doing stuff like the dancing and everything, be like, wow, this is what won over Lily Gladstone. It's like, you gotta, again, watch the movie as a whole and understand the performance that way, not understand it from a 30-second clip you might see someone pull out because they're mad that Lily Gladstone didn't win. But again, I mean, I make it sound like I don't want Lily Gladstone to win. I'm fine with either of them winning. I think they both deserve it. For me, yeah, it's 4 out of 4 stars. If I can go higher, I mean, I would. I absolutely love this movie. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of like all time.
Dom, send us home on Poor Things.
Fellas, especially you youngins, my fellow incels, your crush, you know, that girl you've been crushing on from across the way, she's gonna get around. She's gonna have crushes on other guys. She's gonna love some other guys. She's probably gonna have sex with some other guys. She might start an OnlyFans. She might whore, to quote Mark Ruffalo in this movie, she might whore herself out to others. Just want you to know it's okay. It's okay for her to do that. I understand that feeling. It may hurt. We've all been through it, the 3 of us here. But it's okay. Because guess what? You can do the same thing, right? You can do the exact same thing. So start an OnlyFans. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. 3.5 out of 4 stars. There were some other critiques that, like, just holding back a little bit. I do wonder, and I'm getting into stuff in my closing argument, but the introduction of, you know what? No, you know what? 4 stars. 4 stars, because the introduction of that villain at the end.
Yes,
I was like,
that's what did it for me.
That felt a little late, but then how they resolved that, literally, that was my process right now. How they resolved that, 4 stars.
Yeah.
Nope, I take it. But that wasn't even a bit. I didn't plan that. That was live, real time me thinking 4 stars.
Yeah, no, honestly, like near the end of the movie, I'm like, man, this might be 4 stars for me. I'm really loving this. When that character's introduced and what they do with them is made me go. It made me realize the movie as a whole. I think back from beginning to end, I'm like, 4 stars. There we go. Hey, you earned it.
That was kind of my line of thinking too. It was how it was had to deal with the chloroform and gin cocktail, and then I was like, I love where this is going. I like, you know, and you never were 100% sure on where it was going either, which was a beautiful thing.
That's the power of absurdity. That's the power of absurdity. Is that you can get away with that shit if you can nail the emotional beats. It works in your favor.
100%. This was a great review. I'm glad we dedicated the whole show to it, and then a little bit of Oscar debate as the seasoning to end the show as well. That is Sleepless with Steve for tonight. We're back next week talking about Argyle, and who is the real Agent Argyle has been the topic of discussion all throughout social media over the last week, which I find hilarious. The Matthew Vaughn directed movie, which is also set in the Kingsman universe too, I will add. So this will be. Is that news to you? I
didn't know about that. Fuck.
Did not. Dude, the Kingsman universe is massive.
It looks the exact same. But no, it is. What the plan is for Matthew Vaughn, and this movie's gonna have to make a shitload of money in order for that to happen, because it reportedly cost $200 million. Is that Argyle is gonna spawn its own trilogy. And then in the third movie, it will the Kingsman characters and the Argyle characters will meet.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was.
That's the end goal.
Shit, I know he's trying to plan out a Kick-Ass reboot too. He wants to do the trilogy of comics now with that.
I'll have definitely some stuff to say on Argyle, because I've been a Kingsman, and I only say this because these movies have gotten surprisingly negative reviews. I've been a Kingsman apologist for years now.
First one, and fantastic. Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
No, go on. Go on. What were you going to say about the second one?
First one, fantastic. Second one disappointed me real bad with some of the story beats, and I'm like, this is not hitting.
The second one.
I enjoyed it too.
Like Elton John in a wickedly.
Yeah, that's fine. That was the highlight. That was the highlight for sure.
Kidnapped Elton John and a wickedly dastardly Julianne Moore didn't do it for you. Okay, Dom's got the highest standards of the show over here. We will discuss and hash that out next week. I cannot wait. We're talking Argyle next week, finally. Looking forward to that discussion. Bring you some news if we got any, or maybe Argyle will be so good we'll devote the entire show to it once again. That's our show this evening. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.